What's hot this summer?
Hot! You don't know what hot is.
The summer's hottest comedy series, the all-new Showtime Comedy Spotlight.
Sundays at 1 a.m.
This is Channel 2 News at 11.
And good evening. Here's what's happening tonight. Exclusive new details about the alleged terrorist plot to bomb targets in New York.
They concern the informant who helped stop the 8 suspected terrorists. In addition, tonight, there are new questions about the possible involvement of the sheikh linked to the World Trade Center bombing. Our team coverage begins with Channel 2's Mary Murphy.
When the FBI drove out this car from the alleged bomb factory in Queens last night, it was unclear whether this vehicle could have been converted into a bomb at some point. What is clear, though, is that the FBI had sophisticated audio surveillance equipment inside and listened in on the entire alleged plot thanks to a confidential informant. Well, Channel 2 News learned tonight that the informant has been working with police and the FBI for 3 years, ever since the murder of Rabbi Meir Kahane of the Jewish Defense League. The informant was able to give up information on Muslims connected to El Sayed Nosair, who was acquitted in the murder. But Nosair emerged again as a central figure in the World Trade Center bombing on February 26, which unfortunately the informant didn't know much about. Channel 2 News learned today that a New York City police detective who works inside the Joint Terrorist Task Force was instrumental in getting the confidential informant to cooperate. Apparently, the informant, a devout Muslim, walked into the task force because he was very upset by the World Trade Center bombing and all the death and destruction that was involved with it. The informant agreed to infiltrate an alleged terror cell and also secure an office next to the garage that allegedly was converted into the safe house for the conspiracy. We're told at times he was petrified. Also today, the New York Daily News made a further connection between 5 Sudanese nationals who were arrested in the plot and 1 African-American Muslim from Brooklyn. This At-Taqwa Mosque was mentioned as a possible meeting ground for fundamentalists who were interested in a holy war. But this caseworker for the Child Welfare Administration says he never noticed any radical activity.
From what I could see, they stabilized the community because we had a lot of problems with drugs, drug dealing, and they've cleaned it up basically. So we haven't had any known problems with them.
The Muslim suspect from Brooklyn, known as Abdul Rashid, received this letter from a friend after the FBI came by their apartment on Thursday morning. Quote, "We have an extreme emergency. FBI was by very early this morning and raided apartment." The FBI today said the note writer is not a suspect, although agents are looking for people who might be connected to the terrorist cell.
There is no such a thing called Muslim fundamentalists, okay?
As this man makes clear, the bitterness over this new focus on Muslim believers and their followers will not go away easily. In Brooklyn, I'm Mary Murphy, Channel 2 News.
I'm John Slattery in Jersey City. Sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman, suspected by the FBI to be connected with those arrested in the bombing plot, arrived at his Jersey City storefront mosque for prayer. Some of his followers are angered by the implication of involvement.
Because there's no evidence or proof that any one of them have been convicted of those people. And just don't attack Islam. You guys are attacking Islam and Muslims for no apparent reason whatsoever.
Immigration officials say for 3 years now, Sheikh Omar has been in the U.S. illegally and got in by mistake. Senator Al D'Amato has complained to President Clinton, asking that the Attorney General investigate why the cleric is still here. Sheikh Omar entered the U.S. in May of 1990 on a tourist visa from the Sudan. The State Department apparently unaware that he was on a list of suspected terrorists banned from the U.S. In April of '91, he was granted a green card. In July of '91, his residency was challenged by the INS for allegedly failing to disclose on entry forms that he was a polygamist and had falsified a check in Egypt in 1987, both grounds for exclusion from the U.S. In January, the INS conducted an exclusionary hearing. In March, immigration ordered him out, which the cleric is now appealing. The INS suspects the sheikh of involvement in various terrorist acts, including the 1981 assassination of Egyptian President Anwar Sadat, of which the sheikh was acquitted. Authorities suspect the sheikh's third-story mosque is really more of a headquarters for a political cell preaching opposition to Egyptian President Mubarak. The sheikh denies connection to any bombing plot, saying he doesn't even know those arrested, except for one, Sadiq Ali, the alleged ringleader, whom Sheikh Omar says was his translator. It's reported that it was Sadiq Ali who translated for the cleric at last week's news conference that blasted Mubarak. Sheikh Omar's immigration appeal could take several months to play out. Even if he loses, he can appeal again to a federal judge, and that might buy him more time. In Jersey City, John Slattery, Channel 2 News.
The investigation into the terror plot is stretching halfway around the world to the small African nation of the Sudan. 5 of the suspects in the case are Sudanese, and there are also reports linking Sudanese diplomats to this alleged conspiracy. This is causing fear of a backlash among Sudanese Americans.
We hope that the American public opinion will not conclude that the Sudanese are source of terrorism.
Tonight in the Bronx, officers of the Sudanese Society of New York and New Jersey, fearing retribution, condemned any type of terrorism. They would not speak to a possible motive for their 5 arrested countrymen, except to say some Sudanese are frustrated with U.S. policy in the Middle East.
If these individuals happen to be guilty of whatever has taken place, they should be brought to justice and they should be punished according to the law.
Tonight, the FBI is also investigating whether 2 Sudanese diplomats allegedly offered to supply the 5 Sudanese terrorist suspects with diplomatic license plates so they could smuggle a car laden with explosives into the UN garage. Tonight, Sudan's UN ambassador rejects the idea.
I deny it flatly and categorically.
In 1991, Sudan became an Islamic state under the force of a military dictatorship, a country that is in a state of Cold War with neighboring Egypt, and a country that perhaps has more than a coincidental connection to terror right here in New York. Mideast expert Judith Miller believes Sudan's growing emergence as a hotbed of Islamic extremism bears watching.
Sudan, according to testimony on the Hill from a leading State Department official, is more and more suspected of becoming a kind of nest for terrorists, the kind of place that Lebanon was in the 80s and that Iran has been over the years.
But Professor Richard Bullitt of Columbia's Mideast Institute disagrees.
The idea, however, that the Sudan has been exporting a violent form of Islam doesn't appear to have very much demonstration in what's in the public domain.
Tonight, Hassan El-Tagani defended his homeland and the right for honest Sudanese to prosper in the U.S.
We are an integral part of this society, and the safety of the American society is the safety of all of us.
Tonight, federal authorities say several more suspects in the bomb plot are still at large. However, authorities discount any danger. Ernie?
All right, we have this breaking story just into Channel 2 News tonight. A British Airways jet en route from Kennedy Airport to London has made an emergency landing in Bangor, Maine because of a suspicious passenger on board. A SWAT team and FBI agents are now searching the jet for explosives. Flight attendants became suspicious when they thought they heard a German-speaking passenger talking about explosives. He has been taken into custody for questioning. Approximately 250 passengers were evacuated safely tonight.
A teenager accused of 5 murders in New York City was convicted today of a killing spree that left 3 people dead in Rochester. It took the jury just 3.5 hours to find 19-year-old Etheridge Pierce guilty. Days before the Rochester rampage, Pierce allegedly murdered his grandparents, his aunt, cousin, and cousin's girlfriend in Queens. He now faces 25 years to life in prison for each of the Rochester killings. He'll be tried again this fall for the New York City killings. Ernie?
Tonight, investigators believe that yesterday's mail bombing at Yale University may be the work of a serial bomber or bombers. A Yale professor was critically injured yesterday, and a University of California professor lost several fingers on Tuesday when they opened letter bombs. The FBI believes the bombings are connected to a dozen similar attacks at universities and high-tech companies since 1978. The FBI knows of no motive, but says international terrorism is not high on the list.
On Staten Island tonight, one decision that could cost thousands of jobs. A presidential commission has decided to shut down the controversial home port. Channel 2's Pat Battle has more.
The banner that hangs above Bay Street as you turn off the Verrazano Bridge leaves no doubt about how most Staten Islanders feel about their naval base. It opened in 1990, a $300 million state-of-the-art ship maintenance and port facility with more than 2,500 civilian and military personnel. It's now targeted for shutdown.
I hate to see them go.
And their leaving leaves a big vacuum there, which could be another kind of a problem, too. Because what's going to happen to those massive buildings that are designed for a specific purpose? I don't know.
Congresswoman Susan Molinari waged a long battle to keep the home port open, but the lean, mean post-Cold War budget was far too great an enemy.
We tried to make the argument that based on the list that the Navy put together, there will be no Northeast naval presence, and that can hurt the reserves. It was an argument the commissioners bought, but they just didn't sink in hard enough. I think the Navy's made a fundamental flaw.
The home port gives a $150 million boost to the regional economy with a $20 million military payroll. Much of that money spent in local spots like Greg Brown's unisex hair salon.
It's going to hurt me having the Navy and their families in general leaving, okay? They take up quite a bit of the volume of my business here, but we've come so close with the families.
Down the block and across the street, Jake Havagnaro wonders what will happen when the sailors take permanent leave from the bar they've made their own, providing 75% of his business. Were you holding out hope that this was not going to happen?
On a business standpoint, sure, yeah, definitely. It would definitely help us a lot, but I don't know what's going to happen to Bay Street now after this.
The commission's recommendation still must be sent on to President Clinton and then on to Congress, which can accept or reject the entire package, but can't single out one base or another for a reprieve. If they do reject the package, the process would have to start all over again, and that's not likely. What is likely is that the Staten Island home port will probably be closed by this time next June. In Staten Island, Pat Battle, Channel 2 News.
Coming up next, the nation's first AIDS czar is appointed, and the president says he has now talked with the man who claims to be his half-brother. We'll have details.
And also, spacewalking shuttle astronauts get a spectacular view. Later on, Dennis's view of Sleepless in Seattle. Try that 3 times fast. The new movie starring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. And Frank, you try it fast. What about the hot weather?
Hazy, hot, humid weekend, and with that expected increase in ozone, that may be a problem for some folks. I'll have details coming up.
Channel 2 News, sponsored by Lexus.
You just passed a BMW 540i, and you know your Lexus GS can outcorner it. And you wonder if they know. Then you think to yourself, which is worse for them? You knowing how much more they paid, or them knowing how little you paid? Ask your New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Lexus dealer about the Lexus GS custom tailored lease. He'll know.
2 teams, 2 area codes, 2 fans who want to talk after the game. Now with AT&T, you could save 25%. Spend $40 or more a month and we'll take 25% off your favorite area code. Just call 1-800-426-4752. Any one area code, anytime, guaranteed with no fee. Call to celebrate, call to rub it in. But call AT&T first and save 25%. Real savings made simple. Another part of the iPlan.
This is a test. Can you read that line?
Pure.
And the next?
Clean.
Good. And the one below?
Taste.
Well, when it's that clear, imagine how pure Nestee's going to taste. Nestea iced tea, clearly refreshing. Go on, take the plunge.
No matter how you look at it.
At $17,999, Regal SE has it all.
If you're ready for a luxurious sports sedan that's as distinctive as you are, it's Regal SE, specially built by Buick and available in very limited quantities. So no matter how you look at it.
Look at Regal SE very soon.
Or you'll be looking at one very special opportunity passing you by.
The woman chosen to be the nation's first AIDS czar is already under fire tonight. President Clinton today appointed Christine Gebbe to become the nation's AIDS policy coordinator. Now, Gebbe is a former nursing professor who served as Washington State's Secretary of Health for the past 3 years. However, the AIDS activist group ACT UP says that AIDS patients suffered while she was Washington's health secretary.
And the president finally got a chance to talk to that California man who claims to be his long-lost half-brother. President Clinton reached 55-year-old Henry Leon Ritzenthaler at his home today and chatted with him for about 15 minutes. The president's press secretary said it was a warm conversation, though Mr. Clinton still has not said if he believes the two really are half-brothers. Records show that the president's father fathered Ritzenthaler years before Mr. Clinton was born.
And we have some spectacular pictures from space as 2 shuttle astronauts took a spacewalk to fix the satellite that they retrieved yesterday.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Astronaut Dave Lowe had a few butterflies as he floated near the shuttle's cargo bay, saying that he felt like he was falling to Earth. It was his and fellow crewman Jeff Weissoff's first walk in space.
You're cleared to maneuver the arm at this time.
Their mission, secure 2 loose antennae on Eureka, the European science satellite they secured yesterday. With Lowe's feet strapped to the shuttle's robot arm, the astronaut used old-fashioned brute strength to solve the high-tech problem and force the antennae into place.
We have declared victory. Both of the antennas are now latched.
Eureka is now firmly secured in the shuttle's cargo bay, ready for the flight home. The astronauts spent a few more hours spacewalking today, practicing for another fix-up job, repairing the Hubble telescope in December. Well, despite his early tentative steps, astronaut Lowe sounded sad to come in from space when the day's work was done.
One last look. Last beautiful look.
What a view. The shuttle astronauts are now scheduled to end their 8-day mission and to return to Earth on next Tuesday morning.
Up next, Frank Field has a health warning for the weekend along with the weekend weather.
And also the health threat after a pipe explosion in Manhattan. Later on, the opera star tuning up for a free concert this weekend. We'll tell you where and when you can see him.
Out on the road? This is the number to remember. 1-800-COLLECT. America's least expensive.
From Brussels to Budapest, Milan to Munich.
Dozens of office workers in Midtown Manhattan were finally allowed to go home tonight following an asbestos scare that virtually held them hostage all day long. Construction crews accidentally ruptured a 70-year-old steam pipe on West 33rd Street near 5th Avenue this morning. Tests show that the pipe spewed asbestos right into the air. But city officials say that it's not enough to do any harm, and hazardous material crews are still cleaning up tonight, taking care of that situation. Dana?
Here's Frank now with a look at the weekend weather, but first things first, talk about an ozone level alert for part of the area.
The Department of Air Pollution Control has indicated that high levels of ozone are likely in middle of New Jersey in the interior sections. The rest of the area is in good shape, except for a very hazy, hot and humid weekend that's in store for us. Right now, the readings in Midtown getting to be a little on the uncomfortable side. It is 72 degrees and the humidity has gradually been inching its way up. A lot of moisture has been moving into the atmosphere, and we expect that to continue right through Saturday and Sunday. That means that during the heat of the day, we can get these little thunderstorms that will pop up. This is the warm, humid air mass that covers the east. There's some drier air trying to come through. Preceding that, some scattered showers and thunderstorms, and that will continue to move through by the beginning of next week. But just look at this picture. You can see showers beginning to erupt in the warm, humid air mass, and they're streaming slowly northward and advancing toward us. These are widely scattered. They're all spotted around and isolated, and a couple of them may move in our area on Saturday and Sunday. But for tonight, it will be milder and kind of sticky as the humidity continues to rise. Temperatures getting no lower than around 70 here in town. We'll start out at a warm note, 73 tomorrow morning, and then with hazy sunshine and hot and humid weather, temperatures will gradually climb during the afternoon, reaching up to near or above 90 degrees in many areas. And with that, the possibility of an isolated thunder shower popping up in this rather hot, humid, unstable air mass. This is fairly typical of the summer weather we endure here Saturday and Sunday. For the most part, I think most folks will get away with just a hazy, hot weekend.
We can handle that. In the meantime, we got some good news too to talk about. Still ahead tonight, a free concert that you might want to catch tomorrow night. We'll tell you where you can see Pavarotti Under the Stars.
Also, Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan star in Sleepless in Seattle. Dennis has his review when we come back.
This is a 93 Chevy Lumina sedan. It comes with a V6, automatic, air, AM/FM stereo, power locks,
Boys, let's go. We gotta pick up your teammates.
and real room for 6. All just $219 a month and $925 down.
In the trunk. Oh, where's the door?
And Lumina is $1,900 less than a comparably equipped Ford Taurus. Chevy Lumina, just $219 a month. Expect more for your family at your local Chevrolet GO dealer.
Mary Brody won't feel the tiny lump in her breast for another 2 years. But it'll be discovered tomorrow after her first mammogram, thanks in part to an X-ray film created by DuPont. And for Mary Brody, early detection means a 2-year head start on the rest of her life. At DuPont, we make the things that make a difference. Better things for better living.
Dreyfus knows opportunities have to be chosen carefully, which is why the Dreyfus Growth and Income Fund is so appealing. Since it began over 15 months ago, the fund is up over 26% and has now attracted over 40,000 smart investors. For more information and a free prospectus, call 1-800-DREYFUS. Dreyfus Growth and Income Fund. Survival of the smartest.
Jack? Heard you're going international. Yeah.
Introducing AT&T Global Contacts Program. With savings on travel, office supplies, and shipping, AT&T Global Contacts helps small business compete internationally.
Oh, whoa. 70 orders from the UK, fax paper due ASAP, and wow, we're gonna need more buckets. New business manager. New Yorker? Yeah.
AT&T, far and away the best in the business.
She finally won the Battle of the Frozen Sperm, a lover's gift of life on the next hard copy.
Saturday at 7:30.
Wall Street is littered with the memories of investors who bought with their hearts instead of their heads. A prudent investor pays attention to fundamentals.
And it's those fundamentals that make now the time to lease a 1993 Cadillac Seville. Because now, monthly payments are only $549 on a 36-month lease with a $1,500 down payment.
See your Cadillac Tri-Statesman. For once, you can follow your heart and do right by your head.
The biggest name in opera will be performing Under the Stars tomorrow night, and every single seat is free. Luciano Pavarotti rehearsed today for his free concert tomorrow night in Central Park. The performance is expected to draw up to 250,000 people. It starts at 8 o'clock on the Great Lawn, but advice is to get there early. It is sure to fill up fast.
What a treat. All right, 2 big movie stars are teaming up for the new romantic comedy Sleepless in Seattle. But will it be the sleeper of the summer? Sleeper of the summer. Entertainment editor Dennis Cunningham is joining us wide awake right now for his review. Dennis,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's kind of talkative to be a sleeper, but it's very talkative. Anyway, the movie called Sleepless in Seattle seemed to be, to me rather, God, I'm doing it too, a long way to go for one brief surge of true and heartfelt romance, which is at the end. But then again, the movie makes much of how men and women react differently to romance in the movie, so I thought perhaps the lady with me would tell me the error of my ways, why I wasn't so impressed. What she said to me, though, the moment the movie was over was, gee, that wasn't very good, was it? Well, no, it wasn't, though you have to admire a movie, I think, for at least trying to be sophisticated and meaningful and funny and grown up, failed though it often is.
If you've just tuned in, we're talking to Sleepless in Seattle. Tell me what was so special about your wife.
Well, Dr. Marcia Fieldstone, it was like magic.
He's in Seattle, his wife died, and he thinks he'll never get over it. She's in Baltimore, about to marry a man she clearly shouldn't. Because his kid gets him on a late-night national radio show, many across the country know of him and his plight. She, however, knows that he is the one for her. They are, she is convinced, meant for each other, though they've never met and are thousands of miles apart. It's a very romantic premise, for sure. The movie, however, turns out to be hardly ever romantic, rarely touching, seldom funny, and never witty.
2,000 women calling a radio station for a husband? There are a lot of desperate women out there looking for love.
Especially over a certain age.
You know it's easier to be killed by a terrorist than it is to get married over the age of 40.
That is not true. That statistic is not true.
That's right. It's not true. But it feels true.
Bada-boom. Tom Hanks is wonderful, as he usually is, but Meg Ryan is generically cute, and that's about all, period. And she actually is one of the movie's major flaws. Another is the fairly anemic screenplay. Now, Nora Ephron's directing is quite acceptable at least, but it's not good enough to save a movie miscast in a major part and written rather vaguely. The soundtrack is good. I'd give that an 8. There are 2 great Jimmy Durante songs, but the movie itself is a final 5. It's an okay 5, okay? By the way, the romance movie that this romance movie wannabe keeps holding up as an ideal is Cary Grant and Deborah Carr in Affair to Remember. Remember that? Yes. Well, just to keep things fully honest, I always thought that was a very bad movie.
Yes, but Dennis, they do get together, the whole thing.
Yeah, I know.
And that movie I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Affair to Remember. I haven't seen it.
So were you